which provides better asset protection, trusts or LLCs? Well, stick around to the end of this video because you're going to find out the answer. And while we're at it, please make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you have any questions about this topic. Now, before we dive into the weeds here, what is the difference between a trust and an LLC? Well, a trust is an arrangement that involves three parties. The first person is the grantor who sets up the trust. The second person is the trustee who manages the trust. And the third person is the beneficiary who receives the benefits from the trust. Now, trust can be very advantageous, and this is because the trust is designed to avoid the probate process. And in addition to that, it's an efficient way to distribute your assets to your beneficiaries after you pass. Now, there are two main types of trusts. One is a revocable trust, and the other is an irrevocable trust. So a revocable trust is a trust that you can revoke, which means that you can make changes to it after you set it up. And on the other hand, an irrevocable trust is a trust that you can't revoke. This means that when you set up an irrevocable trust, you can't make any changes to it after it's been formed. And the two common types of irrevocable trusts that you'll see are domestic asset protection trusts and offshore asset protection trusts. And since we're talking about asset protection here, do trusts provide asset protection? Well, it's worth mentioning that revocable trusts do not provide you with any asset protection. And this is because you can change the terms of the trust after it's been set up. However, irrevocable trusts do provide you with asset protection. And this is because the terms are set in stone. Once you set up an irrevocable trust, you can't change it in most circumstances. And another thing worth mentioning is that irrevocable trusts permit spendthrift provisions. And this is where a beneficiary is sued. And if they lose in court, that creditor can't reach the beneficiary's assets that are held inside the irrevocable trust. So in short, revocable trusts do not provide asset protection, while irrevocable trusts do. Now, moving along to LLCs. An LLC stands for limited liability company. And this is a company that you create by performing a filing with your Secretary of State. Do LLCs offer asset protection? The answer is yes. And this is because they protect you in two types of attacks. The first type of attack is the inside attack, and this is a claim against the LLC itself. So if you have an LLC and you're conducting business, somebody could sue the business. However, when this happens, they're only limited to collecting from what's held inside the LLC. In most cases, if you follow the corporate formalities, courts will not permit a piercing of the corporate veil to hold you individually liable. So in short, that creditor can only reach the assets in the LLC, and that protects you from the inside attack. And this is why LLCs are a great tool for business protection, because if you use them properly, they can help you avoid personal liability. And in some states, the LLC can protect you in the outside attack. And this is an attack where you're sued personally and that person tries to reach the assets that are held inside your LLC. As I mentioned, this is not applicable in all states, but there are some states out there that offer the charging order protection for its LLC's members. Now, I've already done a video on the charging order protection, so make sure to check that out. But what happens here is that if you're an LLC member and you get sued personally, and let's say that that person wins in court and gets a judgment against you, well, what could happen there is that person can get a charging order on your interest in the LLC. And what happens there is that if you make any distributions out of the LLC, that person gets to collect. However, if you don't make any distributions, they have to sit there and wait. So the benefit here is that if you're subject to an outside attack and you lose in court, it's harder for that person to reach the assets held inside your LLC. Now, with all of this in mind, do irrevocable trusts or LLCs provide you with better asset protection? The answer here is the LLC, and this is due to several reasons. And this is mainly due to issues associated with irrevocable trusts. Now, bear in mind, irrevocable trusts do come in handy in a lot of different situations. But for asset protection purposes, you're much better off having an LLC. The first reason is that irrevocable trusts are far more costly to form than forming an LLC. Irrevocable trusts can cost twice as much, 3 times, or even 10 times more than setting up an LLC. The second thing is that irrevocable trusts have a more complex structure than LLCs do. The third thing is that you can't change the terms of an irrevocable trust after you set it up. When you set up an irrevocable trust, those terms are set in stone and it's very difficult to change them. However, if you use an LLC, you're free to amend the operating agreement whenever you choose. The fourth reason is that assets held inside of an irrevocable trust are not protected for a certain period of time. And when you transfer assets into an irrevocable trust, they aren't protected for a few years. It's worth mentioning here that Nevada trusts offer the shortest time period here of 2 years. And this means that when you transfer assets into the Nevada irrevocable trust, creditors can reach those assets from 2 years thereafter. But after that 2-year period, the assets are fully protected. On the other hand, LLC assets are generally protected after you transfer title to them. This is unless that transfer is a fraudulent conveyance or a fraudulent transfer. But in all other cases, most likely they'll be protected after you transfer title to the LLC. The fifth reason is that irrevocable trusts must be managed by a trustee. This trustee can be you, but in many cases, you're going to need to hire a trustee to manage the trust and handle distributions on your behalf. And in that situation, you're going to have to pay them annual trustee fees. And on top of this, you're going to need to have another trustee in place after you die, because obviously they're the ones that are going to be managing the estate after your passing. With an LLC, on the other hand, you have the power to manage the LLC's affairs and not a third-party trustee. And this can come in really handy because if you have an LLC right now, you don't need to pay someone to manage that LLC for you. And the sixth reason is that you have far more control over an LLC than you do with an irrevocable trust. In an irrevocable trust, any distributions out of it are subject to the trustee's discretion. However, if you have an LLC and you're the manager of it, you have the power to make distributions out of it. And this can come in really handy if you're sued personally. If you're sued personally and the creditor tries reaching your assets, they'll have a much harder time collecting from an LLC that you control as opposed to reaching the assets from an irrevocable trust that's subject to a third-party trustee's discretion. As you can see, irrevocable trusts do come in handy in some situations. But when it comes to offering better asset protection, LLCs are the clear winner here. And if you need help forming an LLC, we here at Corporate Direct would be happy to assist you. You can schedule a free 15-minute consultation with one of our incorporating specialists by clicking the link in the description below. I also have a new book called The 5 Tricks to Teach Your Kids About Money. You can download the book for free by clicking the link in the description below. If you're looking to start a business, you can schedule a free 15-minute consultation with us at Corporate Direct by also clicking the link in the description below. And as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and turn on that notification bell. And I should warn you, the contents of this video are not legal advice and no attorney-client relationship has been formed.